Greetings, ads and that at this racket here. And today we're going to be talking about Floyd Mayweather versus Conor McGregor and if it's actually a fair matchup. A lot of people really need to settle down. It is ridiculously simple as to how to analyze this fight. Floyd Mayweather would absolutely kick the shit out of Conor McGregor in a boxing match. He did not get his undefeated record and world championship belt by running around the ring, as a lot of people paint Floyd to be. He's a very accurate boxer. He picks his times, and people suggest that he runs like a chicken all the time. You can't run like a chicken to obtain that kind of win streak, right? That's just horrible. You really need to rewatch all of his fights and see how he picks apart his opponent. And he really does have a similar style to Conor McGregor in that sense for the boxing. He picks his time, he stays within range, and then he goes for the punches. Now, when you go on to Conor McGregor's side, now he would absolutely kick the shit out of Floyd in an MMA fight. It's simple as that. In their respected roles, they would beat each other quite easily. Floyd, of course, is 40 years old, and people are, saying that he's old, so maybe Conor could beat him in a boxing match. Floyd Mayweather is arguably one of the best boxers in history. You are not going to see Conor McGregor outbox him. And if you look at Conor McGregor's stance, he's a southpaw, and it's a very open, wide stance. And the stance that he uses really aids his ability to kick with a front kick or a side kick, and that's the sort of good part of his stances, because he can also defend takedowns with it as well. In a boxing match, Floyd's obviously only going to punch, and that's pretty much going to be the only problem Conor would face in the fight. And if he has an open stance like that, Floyd's boxing would obviously be too much for Conor with that open stance that he has. Sure, Conor does have good boxing, but he isn't a boxer. He is an MMA, the UFC. You don't go against professional boxers. You most likely are going to be going against all-rounders, people who have been, kickboxing champions, but not to the same level as Floyd Mayweather. They're two different sports. MMA is a pure combat sport. You use every single bit of your body, whether it be for takedowns, whether it be for submissions, or just a KO. Well, in boxing, it's pretty much a specialist sport nowadays. It's changed a lot. You can only block with your hands, of course. You're not going to be worrying about any kicks. It's just purely based on this rock, paper, scissors sort of type combat with your fists, of course, not utilizing any other part of your body, and that's completely fine, because it is really a mastery for good boxers to take advantage of those small holes, because everyone that participates in boxing, they do it for quite a long time. And for a boxer such as Floyd Money Mayweather, for him to maintain such a large winning streak, never losing before in boxing, when you can get knocked out any time, is very impressive. We all know that Floyd won't come down to Conor McGregor in the MMA. It will be a boxing match if this thing ever does happen. Conor McGregor has gone through people that can box in the UFC, but not to the same caliber as Floyd Mayweather, so it could pose a very large issue for him. Let's put this into context. Let's look at some of the opponents these contenders have been facing. Let's look at their most difficult matchups, say, as of recent. Let's go to Conor first. So his most difficult matchup recently, let's look at his loss against Nate Diaz, and for the hell of it, let's look at his win against Nate Diaz as well. Nate Diaz is definitely the toughest opponent that Conor McGregor has ever faced in the UFC. And the main reason why he lost the first match was because he got outboxed. And a lot of people would say that it was because of stamina issues. Yep, that's definitely a big part of why he lost as well. But he did get caught on the chin several times. Nate Diaz does have good boxing, but as I said, not as good as Floyd. So if they're going to meet up in the ring, Conor really needs to improve his boxing And with that southpaw open stance, he really did get exposed because Nate did really catch him on the chin a few times that fight. In the second fight between McGregor and Nate Diaz, you saw McGregor playing a much more passive, calculated style, and he did pick his shots really well. Now, the question is, when he feels like he's outmatched in boxing, is he going to revert to that passive style? And can you be better than Mayweather? Because that is Mayweather's main trait. He can trade blows really efficiently without getting hit. He can duck and weave really easily in boxing, and he has been doing this for several years now. He's a boxing elite. Can you play more passively than Mayweather? Can you get more hits than Mayweather? Can you not get hit like Mayweather? It's going to be a tough task for Conor. Let's move on to Mayweather's fight versus Pacquiao. Now, with the Mayweather-Pacquiao fight, let's put this into context. When Conor was against Nate Diaz wasn't exactly a title fighter. He's always been a sort of gatekeeper, been floating around the 4th or the 6th rank in his division. But when you put this into context for Floyd, Manny Pacquiao is an absolute brute, and he was arguably dodging Manny because of his form, and maybe in previous years, if Floyd didn't delay this fight for so long, Manny could have perhaps beat him. But we're talking about the fight as of now, or as they fought. They were trading blows quite effectively. Manny Pacquiao was going sort of machine gun mode at the end, throwing his punches in, but he couldn't really land enough because Floyd is so swift in the ring. And what we saw here was a performance that showed some of Floyd's weaknesses. As I said, age could be a factor in that fight, but it showed that if he was faced up against an aggressive opponent that can throw a flurry of punches and really get in his face, it's more difficult for him to score points. But he did end up winning that fight by points, quite narrowly. But it was an overall show as to some of the weaknesses that Floyd has if someone does get in his face. But can Conor get in his face? And if Conor gets in Mayweather's face, is his boxing enough for Floyd to be posed as a threat? For him to be posed as a threat, I'm sorry. We have two absolutely magnificent fighters. One in the area of boxing, one in the area of MMA. As I said previously, Conor would beat Floyd in MMA and Floyd would beat Conor in boxing. That's just how it goes. They specialize in those particular regions in their respected sport. Therefore, you would suspect that if Conor were to enter boxing, Conor would lose. And as I mentioned just before, Floyd were to enter MMA, Floyd would lose. That's just how it works. They are in their respected professions and they train for their specialized sports and conditions that they have to deal with in between the ring and the cage because of their skill sets they have to go against. So that's just the beef of it. This is the episode of Short Talks, my second UFC/boxing short talks. I will make one for other stuff, I promise you. But if you guys enjoy the video, please give it a like. As I always state, I am no professional analyst. I do this as a recreational thing. I do watch these sports emphatically. I enjoy them both. I'm saying this as a spectator, but I really do enjoy your input. If you like the video, feel free to like it, subscribe if you wish. Thank you guys for watching this video. Love you all. Rack it out. Love you all.